Alrighty, welcome in to another edition of PA High School Football Report, 34 Waggle edition. He is Dan Sostek. I am Eric Epler. We are both powered by PennLive, and we are down again in the beautiful $7 million studio. We've got a little bit of new hardware. We'll let you introduce that here in a minute. Something to go along with the upper off in football. As 3 precious weeks, Dan.
Yep.
That's it. That's all we have left for the regular season. We talked, 8 weeks ago about just get to the season. Then the train starts moving, everything starts shuffling, everything comes in alignment, and of course now here we are. Now everybody's bucking for postseason spots. So we will talk about that a little bit in a little bit. But first, I got to ask you: New England Patriots, Pittsburgh Panthers, your weekend summarization.
It's the best Pitt football week of the year. They were on a bye, so I mean, some buzz about quarterback switching to tight end. And at this point, if your team's going to be bad, at least have some fun, stupid stuff like this happening where, former 5-star recruit Phil Jerkovic is rumored to be moving to tight end, and then the coach says, no, that's not happening. So, I prefer that to what I'm watching in New England, which is the worst offense I think I've ever seen in my life watching the New England, which granted 20 years of Tom Brady, so it doesn't say that much.
Right.
It's getting comically bad there too, but let's just say the New Orleans Saints were plus money on Sunday.
Bad, yes.
And I'm not telling people to gamble, but I'm saying if you see a team plus money, it's the New England Patriots. Might be a better investment than cryptocurrency or something like that. So
right now it is.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a new piece of hardware. Dan, introduce our new piece of hardware. Listen, we're trying to get some things up to spruce up.
Yep.
We're not going to add it all at once because that would just
no,
you know what I mean.
One by one.
It's too much.
Yep.
It's too much. But weeks ago was the Cocoa Bean Bowl. What year is it for the Cocoa Bean? 80? Is it 81?
I thought it was something like it might have been the 65th or something along those lines.
No, they had a 75th anniversary a few years ago.
Maybe it was 85th.
Yeah, maybe it was 85th.
It was some weird number.
Yeah, but this was waiting for you in the press box. Is that correct?
No, they were actually handing these out to everybody. And I usually don't take gifts because that's unethical.
Right.
But considering the podcast situation, I said I am taking this strictly for work.
Yes.
And we believe it's well below the threshold of what a gift constitutes of, because I think I could make this in my backyard. But it's still a very cool little knick-knack. Cocoa Bean 2023, one of the best rivalry games in the Mid-Penn. So.
And it's different. We haven't seen one of those in a while.
On the back
so
it
that's
says
good.
breakthrough. I like that little thing. But Cocoa Bean Bowl. We're not supporting either team. We're just supporting the bowl. So.
That's right. You support trophy games.
Yep.
You know me. I love trophy games.
Oh, yeah. Just
love them.
What was it? The Michigan, was it the Little Brown Jug this week with Minnesota? Is that what?
Yes. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Take the Wolverines. Anyway, so before we get into it, we talked about postseason bids, and everybody's sort of lining up. So we're gonna talk some power ratings here. But first, before we get to that, we do want to wish Alex Erby one more congratulations for both of us becoming Pennsylvania's career leader in passing yardage on Friday. He needed 138 yards to pass Brett Brumbaugh, the former South Fayette gunslinger, for the top spot. He got 341 yards in a 55-7 win over the Lions. So congratulations to Alex again. There is another record he's chasing.
Yep.
I don't know if he'll get it this week, but Newport actually is in town. Comes to Steelton Thursday night for a little Thursday night special. Newport obviously struggling to kind of rebuild. So there's a possibility. Erby needs 6 touchdown passes to tie Pennsylvania's all-time mark in that category. That's from Jeff Hohenstein from Central, who just said it last year at 146 career TD passes. Man, is that a lot? Whew.
Yeah.
So Alex right now is at 140. So we'll be looking at that game on Thursday night, and maybe he sets 2 Pennsylvania records in 2 straight weeks.
Yeah,
which would be pretty dang impressive.
And it's a cool thing to see. Alex.
Yeah.
Alex is a really good kid. Really hard worker. And really putting together if they make it all the way to the end of the year. He's going to have one of the best high school football careers in the state of PA. He already has one, but if he has 3 state championships in 4 years to go along with all the passing records, that's an all-time career. So, really, props to a great kid at a really proud program. So cool to see.
It's been fun to watch him for sure. Yeah. All right, so let's get on to it, Dan. We're going to talk District 3 power ratings a little bit here today. I had a former colleague of mine, smart, wise old man, old like me, used to say, you never look at the power ratings before week 9. Because number one is they're maddening. Number two is they're never going to be the same week to week.
And number 3, we didn't major in mathematics.
Right. So. Number 3 is you cannot project them unless you really sit down with an IT expert, somebody who's way, way smarter than you, to figure out the formula. I never enjoyed the fact that we went to a formula years and years ago. I understand why we did it, but I miss the old days when we used to throw every coach into a dark room, and whoever emerged out 20, 30 minutes later would get the number 1 seat.
You get the smoke from deciding the post.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was just it was a verbal fight. Well, I don't call it a fight. A verbal.
It's more like the college football playoff is the BCS, right?
Yes, BCS exactly. Right.
I think I was looking at what the BCS would have college football today, and I think there was some crazy team at number 1. It might have been like Missouri or something.
Like Memphis. Yeah. So I enjoyed those days too, and obviously there are still some pockets of Pennsylvania who do that. Most have gone to some sort of point system and formula.
Do you even know what half these acronyms on the state?
Yes, I do, actually. As bad as it sounds, I know what all of them mean. And the one thing I do not like about the power rating formula is the fact that your opponent's weighted winning percentage counts for 45% of your dinner plate.
Yeah.
Which I don't like, because I think it should be a less percentage, because your strength of schedule can fluctuate so much, and it fluctuates tenfold week to week.
Yep. And what if you play a team whose quarterback is healthy, then they
exactly
all week 3.
Right.
It's not a real. It definitely should be weighted, I think, but not to that degree.
I think it should be, but if you get me down another 10%, I think I'd probably be happy. 25%, maybe even better. Yeah. Wins still matter the most. Doesn't matter who you're playing, but there are teams that really get hindered, like let's say an Upper Dolphin.
Yeah.
In 3A. Obviously, they're playing more single A schools.
Even Central York being 7-0 behind a 6-1 team.
Yes. So I just think the fact that there's probably some right percentage in there. I don't think it's 45, and maybe it's not 25 either.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's as good as it gets right now. So this is where we stand. 3 weeks to go for games to count against PIAA opponents only. That's what also shifts a few people. They see a Steel High in there listed at 5-1.
Yeah.
Well, everyone knows they're 6-1, but they obviously played a team against the Eastern team out of Washington, D.C. That does not count toward your power rating.
Yeah.
And there's multiple teams, obviously, in the district who have played out-of-state teams moving on. St. Joe's Prep does it all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So their system is different. But, all right, so we already know Steel High's pretty much guaranteed
a title.
Yeah. They're certainly guaranteed a spot. Even right now, they're already in the championship game for 1A. So it gets a little bit more interesting once you just drop to 2A. The biggest question for me coming in was who's going to get that top seed. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Anvil Clean had a big win last week against Lancaster Catholic. That was huge for them. And it shotgunned them up above Trinity, who's really working on their strength of schedule.
Yeah.
That's the fact that a 4-2 team is sitting there, number 2. And the teams behind them haven't been gangbusters either. Yeah. So that's really the only interesting thing to play out.
And one of my favorite things about this stuff is I love the mascot matchups of some of these games.
Yes.
Shamrocks versus Dutchmen, that's just a beautiful match. That beats like a Panthers versus Wildcats any day of the week or something like that. You just from pure aesthetic standpoint, give me some Dutchman versus Shamrock action.
That's a great one. So four teams qualify there in 2A.
Yeah, Camp Hill should be in decent position.
I think we're in pretty good shape on who those four teams are going to be already.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of where they line up, particularly 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Which will be important for Camp Hill and Columbia to face off against either Trinity or AC.
Yep.
So let's move on to 3A, Dan. We have a new leader in 3A.
Yeah, this was kind of cool checking in. Why I'm missing with a pretty surprising. I don't know if surprising is the right word, but it's always surprising when why missing loses a football game.
Right.
But they got beat pretty soundly by Cacalco on Friday, and the 3A leaders now from your District 3 West Perry Mustangs who just keep pulling out football games. It wasn't pretty against Big Spring either, but they are 7-0 on the year, number 1 in 3A. Who knows? I still don't know if we love that matchup for against Y Missing. If that's what this comes down to, but it certainly looks more winnable than it did at the start of the year. And what an accomplishment that would be for that program to come out of this Marcus Quaker era with a District 3 title.
Yeah, you almost feel like it's deserved, like to get over that hump, if you will. That not only has Marcus Quaker did unbelievable things for this program, but guys like Brad Hockenberry and guys like Eden Goodling and all these guys,
Bradshaw.
Right, who have just built this program into these guys are giants now. These guys, it's a 3A school, but these guys are going 9-1, 10-0, 8-2 every single year now.
Yeah.
So it's just regenerating itself every year, and that's a huge part of what Bob Bowden does, and his coaching staff deserves all the credit in the world.
That Steel High game, week 10
yeah,
be like that game goes from something. Where you expect Steel High to win, but it's a group that I think is not going to go down. Even last year they fell behind 21-0 early and needed a bit of a game towards the end. I imagine that this is a team that has eyes on that game. Might be just as big for them as winning a District 3 title to kind of prove to kind of make some noise heading into the playoffs too. So
yeah, it's going to be big too, especially if they will. I was sitting there 9-0.
Yeah.
Then probably even a loss there would probably just keep them at 2.
Yeah.
And give them that first round bye, which would be which is exactly what they're shooting for. That would be the primo spot for them, either sitting there 1-2. I don't think. Well, it would be nice to actually play that in Elliotsburg.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you could get Y Missing up there. But who knows? A lot can happen in 3 weeks, but they're in really good shape right now.
And how about Upper Dauphin too? Just keep trucking along. I think they lost somewhere in the 30s of players from their team last year.
Yep.
Still 5-2. They're just a winning football program up there.
It was interesting too that now they didn't need him obviously this week against James Buchanan, who was struggling, but. Aiden Bigeman didn't play.
Wow.
The quarterback for Upper Dauphin. So we have to keep an eye on that and see if he's back. He's obviously a monster piece to that puzzle there.
Yeah.
4A, well, I guess we can't give the title to McDevitt, but it seems like they win the title every year. So I don't know how many years it's been now. I can't even think.
I really don't like saying that too because it really is dismissive to all the other teams and hard they work. But it's just not it's not a fair fight. It really there's just not that level of talent on any of these other teams. It would take a pretty colossal kind of either a colossally big rise of a performance by a team or pretty much a colossal collapse by McDevitt to not win the 4A title.
We always talk about A game. There has to be an A+++ game.
Yeah.
And I think still too to beat McDevitt and all that firepower, you need to be +4 turnover margin. 2 turnovers probably isn't going to do it for you.
Yeah, you're going to need the ball to get – you're going to need some rain. You never know if there's some rain or make it ugly. But it's just you try to create these these situations in your head. But the team's just – they're kind of a machine right now.
Yes.
And, again, it's no discredit to other teams. What a great job Twin Valley's done this year.
The great 2 1-point wins back to back.
Yeah,
back to back weeks. Brett Myers is doing a fantastic job
rebuilding that program from from
right off the get go. And of course, we know how strong Manheim Central can be.
Yeah,
we know how strong and dangerous Lampeter Strasbourg can be. It's tough to talk about those two teams and the programs that they are, and not give them a chance against Bishop McDevitt. I mean, that's tough to talk. It's tough to say.
But it's kind of like the fact of the matter is Bishop McDevitt has the only times they've been challenged in the last 2 years are when they're going against state title contenders. That's pretty much the only.
Yeah, I mean Cedar Cliff beat them 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah. But in the Stone, I mean, I guess when Stone Saunders was a freshman, they lost to LaSalle. They got beat by LaSalle, and they've lost to Emotep, and they've lost to Aliquippa. And then the 2 tough games this year were against really good, out of state teams. So until I see it, I've just got to defer to them, winning these games rather easily. Rico Scott was out this week, so that is something I'm honored. But it sounds like he's going to be back next week. It sounds like and that's the other thing that McDevitt is kind of afforded that some of these other teams aren't. They can buy their players rest weeks pretty much because of
good point.
Because of face it, how kind of they can kind of cruise through their conference schedule. Some of these other teams can't. So that's another big advantage for them. Susquehanna Township would be kind of an interesting matchup because they are the one team kind of. I think that at least has one athlete that can match up with McDevitt's athleticism. Jair Rawlson versus Lex Cyrus would be a really fun matchup.
That would be fun, yeah.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned Susquehanna Township now. They're right below East Pennsboro, which just suffered their first loss. And last week we were talking about can the Panthers sort of run the table and go 10-0. Yeah, of course we jinxed them, down here in the cellar.
Yeah.
We jinxed them.
It's all right.
But, so I would love to see, East Penn sort of right the ship. Again, we don't root for anybody, but if they were able to right the ship and kind of get into the house here after 10 weeks at 9-1 or 8-2 even, then they'll get a beneficial matchup at least, and possibly even get a home game, which would be huge for that program. Yeah, would be huge for them.
And it's a good environment up there too.
Yeah. 5A, I'm going to tell you, brother.
This is a shock. This was shocking to me.
I'm going to tell you one thing. We if most know how the sort of the state rankings work and how we sort of put them together. There's a relied source of reporters, relied on probably 7 to 8 around the different parts of the state that I really lean on, and then there's like another group of about 35, 40 that voice their opinion for all preseason stuff, and then keep tabs with me during the season. To kind of get those up and updated every week. Every time one of those groups and I talked about 5A, it became this maddening thing because you couldn't pinpoint, and this is statewide. This is not district-wide.
But it's a good microcosm.
Yes, but you couldn't pinpoint that beyond Imhotep Charter. It's almost impossible to sort of, let's say, get it right.
Yeah.
Because every week it's 1 or 2 losses in the top 10.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's guys playing each other. The Whitfield has 5 or 6 teams, things like that. District 3, 5A is exactly like that.
For me, this is the one that I think I'm not sure I buy how the rankings are currently shaping. For me, I think Exeter Township's probably the cream of the crop in 5A.
I think you could go Exeter or Cocalico and have an argument of both of those teams.
Yeah, I think it's one of those 2 teams for how awesome of a job Colin Gillen's done with his Cedar Cliff football program. To see them number 2 is pretty impressive. And they're pretty young, too. They're going to be here for the next couple of years, too.
Yep.
So and it would not shock me if they could go into a playoff game against a team like Exeter or Cocalico or something like that and kind of turn it into this gritty, grimy game where it's 14-10 in the fourth quarter, and they just need a touchdown drive and then they run the ball 10 times. Mm-hmm. Bennett Seacrest boots out, throws a 30-yard touchdown pass or something like that. Cedar Cliff is very good at sticking around in football games, and that's such a valuable thing.
And they play a little D too.
Yeah, and but in terms of just the high upside, I just think Exeter, even they lost obviously Joey Schlaffer last year, but they still are. They're winning a lot of these games by pretty significant margins. To me, that's always kind of what I look at is who's winning games by 3 touchdowns consistently.
Right.
Winning over Governor Mifflin, who's, it's not the same Governor Mifflin team, but they've also been playing a little better football. Well, I guess they've had some tough schedule recently, but it's for me with Eggs are just more the high end offense paired with a defense that can shut down teams. I mean, the Warwick win 28-20-21 was their closest game of the year, but that's still a pretty good win. But Calico, I mean, they might have the best win, of any team in this conference with their 34-14 win over Wyomissing. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I look at 5A too, and I just looked at it yesterday, and I'm like, I have never seen a 5A under the fence inside the fence where you have New Oxford, Garden Spot, and Epler in the same top 12 qualification. Never saw that.
And you wonder too if Lower Dauphin had pulled out that 20, they lost 21-16 to Cedar Cliff last week. If they win that game, are they number 1 in the power? And
you know what? It'd be hard. I mean, I think they're probably 2. I mean, because you look at Lower Dauphin and their strength of schedule is very good.
Yeah,
it's one of the best up here. I mean, the ones that are a little bit better are teams that are outside the fence.
Yeah.
So and it's it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that's the most volatile part about a power rating is your opponent's weighted winning percentage, and at 45%, a lot can happen here. You could move three to 4 spots. The golden rule is kind of that 0.3. You win, you 0.3, lose 0.3 below.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always hold, especially when you've got teams from all different classifications on your schedule, and you're running a gauntlet. So
yeah.
That'll be interesting. It's the Wild Wild West. It'll continue to be for the next 3 weeks. Yep. All right, real quick, Dan. Let's go over 6A. I think the usual suspects are here.
Yep.
I think it's just lining them up. Obviously, the most impressive team so far, hands down, has been Manheim Township.
Yep. I believe Landon Kennel's up to 18 touchdown catches this year in 7 games or something like that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's Randy Moss.
That is Randy Moss territory.
That's it's going to be exciting because Harrisburg, for as good of a program Harrisburg is, I think people kind of forget how young this team is because a lot of the guys on this team were part of the team last year.
Right.
But Sean Lee feels like he's been in high school for 7 years. He's a junior still has another year of football left. Their top receivers, Elias Koch and Quincy Brandon, are underclassmen. I mean, Kevin Brown, their best tackles, is sophomore. They have a lot of youth. So when you see them kind of pull out that 34-27 win over a team like CD East that's 10th in the power rankings, your eyes eyebrows raise a little bit. But that's a rivalry game. But to me, it feels like there needs to be some sort of sign that they're really ready to take that next step. And this is a great week for them to do that with their road game against State College.
Yeah.
I think a big win against State College would kind of re-emphasize especially that would send a message, I think, to Manheim that, Harrisburg has kind of figured some things out and it's not going to be the same game that it was on that Saturday early in the season. But right now it's really hard to pick against Manheim Township. That team is just they are just a complete force. They beat Cedar Crest this past week 42-0. Mm-hmm. And I don't like doing the transitive property stuff, but Cedar Crest beat Central Dauphin East 33-7, and Central Dauphin East only lost to Harrisburg by 1 touchdown.
Right.
They are just absolutely running through teams right now. Their closest loss of the year was a 63. Well, I mean, the most points they given up was a 63-28 win over Springford against Matt Zollers, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the state. Other than that, they've not allowed more than 7 points at a football game this year.
Right.
So we talk a lot about, Landon Kennel and Hayden Johnson, but that defense we might not be talking enough about at all. It is an elite state winning defense. And then, Central York just keeps winning too. Some of their wins aren't these blowout wins, the 14-0 win against Cumberland Valley, which is now looking a little better after Cumberland Valley
absolutely, yeah,
pulled things out. 23-13 win against the Dallastown team with some Division I talent, and then, kind of blow it up with a 72-0 win over Northeastern this week. And Central York's one of those teams too that has that one player that can kind of even out the score with Jules Goff.
Equalizer.
Yeah, the type of guy that can have that 250, 300-yard game that all of a sudden it's a 28-21 game in the fourth quarter and things are getting tight. But I just have a tough time. This feels like it's Manheim Township's.
Right now it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right now it feels very much like it's the Blue Streaks.
Yeah. I mean, and then the Harrisburg thing is just one of those things where I think you can get two different Harrisburgs every game.
Oh, yes.
Like, I think if you get the right Harrisburg, that Manheim Township game is not going to be a 33-7 loss. But
that's right.
They need to be on their, on their P's and Q's to be competitive in that game.
Yeah, it's a lot of interest up top. The most interesting thing for me was Cumberland Valley now sitting in the 8th and final spot.
Yeah, and
after an 0-3 start, they've clawed their ways. They're gonna be a favorite against Carlisle. They're gonna be a favorite against Altoona down the stretch. So if they get those two games 5-5, boom, they're in.
Yep, and they played State College kind of tough last year too. Obviously, it's a different team, but State College's offense has been good this year. But I wouldn't say it's been the same type of offense.
It's not. It's been completely different. The offense, the running game is very similar to what Trinity's going through now. It's to kind of get it together, to get it on pace. Some of that has to do with the offensive line, and some of it has to do with the actual guys running the football too and scheme. Yeah. And it's just been a little bit different. Yeah. So
Central Dauphin is my biggest question though, because I just have no idea. I think there are certain teams every year that you just kind of can't figure out. Yeah. And I think Central Dauphin is that team for me this year. Like I think that they are a team that any given week can be competitive with any team in 6A because they have those trenches. Right. They have that talent, with Mateo Crummel, and they have that athleticism, Miles Copper, Kieran Plummer, but it just isn't there week to week, and sometimes that's a scary thing to face when you get them on the playoff sheet because you don't know. Get them
on the right week, right?
Exactly.
Or the wrong week.
But they're now, they have two games. They have Altoona, CD East, and Harrisburg. CD East, that's going to be their biggest game of the year too. Try to get in the playoffs. Yep. There's so many there. I think Central Dauphin has the biggest range of outcomes of any team in the remaining for me.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, that's a quick look, run through the District 3 power ratings through 7 weeks of the regular season. Remember, a couple of Thursday games this week. Get out and watch some football. Just wear a little parka, a little wind pullover. Temperature's going down, but it's okay. It's good football weather. Of course, we'll be back next week with another edition of PA High School Football Report. For Dan Sostek, I'm Eric Epler. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.